and onto the high school team that turned me into the track athlete that I am today.
Do you remember the early stages where it went from just running normally to actually having to think about how to pace yourself and tactically, start racing properly? When did it just move? Do you remember those early stages, and how was that for you from a developmental perspective?
Yeah, it took me a long time. I mean, the first time I can remember racing was those sand races when I was younger on the beach, and then when I ran that mile for the first time when I was 11 years old. And when I was 11, I ran a 6-minute mile. I ran 6:02. Never forget that. I was so proud, but I was so upset I didn't break 6 minutes. But I went out so fast. I mean, I ran as fast as I could that first lap, and then it was like me paying for it and getting slower and slower and slower the next 3 laps. And no one really told me otherwise. I mean, I think it's probably a good thing. I had no idea what I was doing. I was enjoying it. I was like learning from my mistakes here and there. But it wasn't until high school I had a coach that really tried to talk to me about strategy and like how to run a race properly. And that's when I learned the sit and kick strategy, the like, don't lead a race until you're really certain you're going to win. I'm like, okay. And he's like, so you really should stay behind people for the first 3 laps and don't go crazy. And then that last lap, you can run as fast as you can. And that was the first time like I actually had real race advice and learned how to like race a little smarter. And I think that carried me through for a long time. But also as I got better and better, I had a lot of pre-race anxiety. I really, really struggled when I was in high school, feeling like all of the expectations were on me. So having a plan and a race strategy, a little bit of one at least, helped. But yeah, it also took a long time to work through the get to the place again where I was having fun running track.
How much did it affect your performance when you were going through the anxiety? Because someone like myself, that was a major issue for me when I was younger and competing. How did you deal with it?
Oh,
how did you move
gosh.
forward from it?
Yeah, it took me a long time. I really struggled with it all of high school. I just felt like I was really, really good as a freshman in my first year. And so that was kind of I was playing on the track every time I was on the track. And by the end, like I'd gotten good and I had run so well. I'd run so fast as a freshman. I ran a 4:51 mile that first year and I was 14. That I just felt like the expectations of the world and the team and the community, like in the town newspaper, were just all on my shoulders, and I didn't handle it well, and I didn't really have a lot of help in learning how to handle it well. I didn't run as fast even for the next couple of years. I'd have to talk myself into getting to the starting line of a race. It was easier in cross country when I knew I had teammates counting on me, like I had to finish the race or run well or else kind of for the team. But track really didn't like it. I spent 3 years in high school like really struggling through track season because for me that felt like this is just for me, this is an individual thing and I'm not enjoying it. Why am I doing this? And it actually took going to college, getting a scholarship and getting hurt to really find a love for track again and to appreciate like my body and what it can do. And and also working with a sports psychologist over years and just not even a sports psychologist, just a proper psychologist to like kind of work through those feelings of anxiety and turn them into like motivation and power. But yeah, it took close to a decade to get to a place where I almost always now go to a starting line excited and ready to go, including at the, US Olympic trials. So long time.
So I'm so intrigued because I think the first thing that comes to mind is that where does it stem from? Where did the anxiety stem from? Is it from your own expectations? Now I know you mentioned a few things, the weight of the community and your own expectations, but in hindsight, was it just intrinsic pressure, or in hindsight, did you get pressure from maybe members of the community, maybe your coaches who are putting, this pressure on you and maybe they didn't understand and acknowledge what it was actually doing and to you?
Yeah. I think it was definitely both. I can be very harsh on myself. I set really high expectations for myself. And when I saw the kinds of times I could run and the ideas were in my head of like, man, I could be a national champion. Like I could go run in college. Like that really, just was a lot of myself and me putting pressure on myself. But I mean, it definitely came externally too. Like my parents are really competitive. They got very excited with how good I was and knew I could get a scholarship to college and continue running. I even wanted to quit my freshman year. I was having such a hard time. There was also a really mean girl on the team who was kind of a bully, and I was struggling with her, and my dad told me I couldn't quit, and he now says, don't you thank me for that? I'm like, well, maybe. I do love track, and I'm glad I stayed in it, but that was hard. But yeah, I think my coaches didn't really know how to handle it. I think at one point so when they'd break down the cross country scores and how we could do really well at a state championship, they'd put the number of points next to each person's name or range of points that they think we could get, and low score in cross country wins. And they put 1 next to my name, like I'm going to win. And that was like, I think they didn't realize it, but that would like freak me out. Like, oh my goodness, like if I don't win, then I'm like not living up to their expectations. And then, yeah, it was also just the team and the community. Like, I'd never been in the local paper before. And then I was in the local paper, and the reporter would call me after like half of my races. And I didn't take a lot of enjoyment out of track because I felt like I had to live up to the expectations of my coaches and my parents and my teammates and the community. And if I didn't run the race I was supposed to run, in my head, it was what I had to do. Like, then I was disappointing someone, and that freaked me out. Yeah.
Was it straightforward for you to start speaking to a sports psychologist, or was that something that took time for you to get to that point?
It took a lot of time. It actually took me going to college and getting hurt for me to finally kind of speak to someone about like struggling and coming back from an injury and feeling like I was never going to be good enough again. And that's when we finally dove into some of the pre-race anxiety. And I actually ran a lot of my races in college coming back from injuries. And so I think in a way, like the anxiety could have gotten worse, but that was a time in which I was able to kind of flip it on its head and be able to like I said before, use it as a superpower. Like, you know, there's not much I can do. I didn't get all the training in I needed to get, but like, I'm going to throw myself out there and like be the most powerful person mentally on the starting line. And like, maybe that'll get me somewhere. And it often did. It worked. And like, believe it or not, I have a lot of the injuries to thank for that. Also to thank for, you know, getting me in to see a psychologist. And now I regularly work with one now who's fantastic and has continued to help me like kind of hone in on those skills.
So yeah, you alluded to it. So yeah, I read another interview of you where you did say patience is your superpower. So can you give a specific time where you really had to demonstrate patience? So not necessarily through your injuries, but just any time in your career where you really had to activate your quote unquote your superpower.
Yeah, gosh, plenty of times. If I think of one from this past year, exactly a year ago, I sprained my ankle very badly, like went to urgent care and thought I'd broken my ankle. And this is now within, 10 months of the Olympic trials to try to make the Olympic team. And I spent those 2 months hurt. I tried running so many times. It was painful. I couldn't do it. And then as soon as I got back to running, I developed Achilles problems on that same side. And now 2 months outside of Olympic trials, I've had like a really up and down year. And I decided instead of running through it, I wanted to take like 10 days totally off. And it was such a hard choice. And actually it wasn't coach imposed. It was like, I think this is what I need to do. And I need to get treatment on it if I'm going to have a chance to even run at the Olympic trials. And that was not a decision that Rebecca, even like 2 or 3 years ago, could have made, but it was a choice that I knew I had to make. And I was as patient as I could possibly be. I spent a lot of time in the pool, and to be honest, like I was amazed at how much my body came around. That really helped me deal with my Achilles and my ankle problem at the time. And I ended up, not making the Olympic team, but having a great Olympic trials experience, and then had a lot of great racing over the summer. So if I hadn't done that, I don't know if I would have even gotten there. So that's a good example, I guess, for me from this past year.
Do you think you would have responded differently? Let's say the same thing happened for Rio, approaching Rio. Do you think you would have responded the same not making the team?
Oh gosh, I didn't even make the Olympic trials in 2016. So it's hard for me to even like think about comparing. Like I tried to make the trials. I was healthy that year. I really thought I had a shot, and I ended up being like 9 seconds off of the qualifier in the 1500, which is a lot. I wasn't even really close. So it's hard for me to even put myself in those shoes. But something I did do the year before in 2015 was I had a femoral stress fracture. I had broken my femur. I didn't know it yet, but I really wanted to run through it and go to the NCAA championship. And I tried really hard to continue to run through it. And I actually had to be like stopped before I got to the starting line because I was just gimping everywhere. So needless to say, I don't think I could have made that decision or that smart of a choice, nor could I have like dealt with, you know, the feelings of I don't know, of disappointment or maybe not living up to what I had hoped at the time too. But I wasn't even good enough to be there. So that's a really big 5-year turnaround.